Bobby Fischer had an IQ over 180. If you're even remotely tuned into the chess scene, you've probably heard someone say this before, or maybe even said it yourself at some point. Some people even throw out a more specific number like 187, with a level of confidence that would lead you to assume, well, this must be a settled, confirmed fact. But it isn't. As far as I can tell, there's never been a publicly available IQ test showing that score. What I have found is that this claim mostly comes from a chess historian named Frank Brady, who said an unnamed source had seen Fischer's school records, and that among those alleged records was his IQ score. But we don't have the actual test, or a psychologist report, or even really any solid evidence that we can verify this with. Instead, Brady's initial claim seems to have snowballed over the years, being repeated so many times that people just sort of accepted it as fact. And don't get me wrong, I am not saying that Bobby Fischer was not extraordinarily gifted. He almost certainly was, considering he became the youngest grandmaster in history at the time and later broke the Soviet Union's decades-long dominance of world chess. But recognizing that he was a genius isn't the same thing as demonstrating that his IQ was over 180. There's also a broader misconception people have about the relationship between chess and IQ. Yes, there is a relationship between IQ and chess skill. No, IQ alone does not mean that someone will master chess, or even that someone who has mastered chess must have an extraordinarily high IQ. Things like creative problem solving, reasoning, pattern recognition, and working memory will absolutely help you learn the game. But, like almost every other complicated skill, chess is an interplay of both natural ability and deliberate practice. It's the years of study, play, and analysis that separate good players from exceptional ones. Hell, this is true of almost every field. The people at the very top almost always have one thing in common. They've each put in thousands upon thousands of hours of focused practice, almost without exception. You've probably heard of something called the 10,000 hour rule, and without getting into the specifics of that figure, the point is that world-class expertise almost always take an enormous amount of deliberate, focused practice over many years. Yes, talent helps, but there's very little evidence that anyone reaches the absolute top of any complex field on just talent alone. In fact, I'd be hard-pressed to find a single player among the top 10 or 15 in history who reached that level without first putting in tens of thousands of hours of deliberate hard work. You know, I have another issue with how people talk about IQ, specifically what people don't talk about. It's the fact that modern IQ tests become less reliable the higher you measure. Once you get past around 160 roughly, you start running into problems like test ceiling effects and sparse norming samples. In other words, trying to distinguish between someone with an IQ of 165, or someone with 175, or someone with 185 isn't nearly as precise as people often like to think. So even if Bobby Fischer had taken an IQ test, and even if he did score incredibly high, we'd still have to be careful about treating a number like 187 as though it were a precise scientific measurement. Because, it isn't. At least not yet. My point in saying all of this isn't to say that Bobby Fischer wasn't a genius, or wasn't a great player, or was not obviously extraordinary. He was. There's a reason he's my favorite world champion. My point is that we need to separate what we actually know from what we just hear people say. It's completely reasonable to say that Fischer was extraordinarily gifted. It is not reasonable to confidently say that his IQ was over 180 when you don't have any solid evidence to back that claim up. If you like content like this, I'd like to tell you to subscribe, but honestly, I have no idea whether I'll make another video like this again. I just wanted to make this one, so I hope you enjoyed it. And anyways, thanks for listening.